meant for distribution. Although there is already such scientific knowledge, although there is much scientific knowledge, whenever scientists or philosophers awaken to a particular type of knowledge, they try to distribute it throughout the world, for otherwise the knowledge gradually dries up and no one benefits from it. India has the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, but unfortunately, for some reason or other, this sublime knowledge of the science of God was not distributed throughout the world, although it is meant for all of human society. Therefore, Krishna himself appeared as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and ordered all Indians to take up the cause of distributing the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita throughout the entire world. Jare deke tare kahe Krishna Upadesh, Amara Agyaya Guru Hai Tara Desh. Instruct everyone to follow the orders of Lord Sri Krishna as they are given in the Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. In this way, become a spiritual master and try to liberate everyone in this land. Although India has the sublime knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, Indians have not done their proper duty of distributing it. Now, therefore, the Krishna consciousness movement has been set up to distribute this knowledge as it is, without distortion. Although previously there were attempts to distribute the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, these attempts involved distortion and compromise with mundane knowledge. But now the Krishna consciousness movement, without mundane compromises, is distributing Bhagavad Gita as it is, and people are deriving the benefits of awakening to Krishna consciousness and becoming devotees of Lord Krishna. Therefore, this proper distribution of knowledge has begun, by which not only will the whole world benefit, but India's glory will be magnified in human society. Kamsa tried to arrest Krishna consciousness within his house, Bhojendra Gehe, with the result that Kamsa, with all his opulences, was later vanquished. Similarly, the real knowledge of Bhagavad Gita was being choked by unscrupulous Indian leaders, with the result that India's culture and knowledge of the Supreme were being lost. Now, however, because Krishna consciousness is spreading, the proper use of Bhagavad Gita is being attempted. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vikasa Swaminiti Namine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Sa Devaki Sarva Jagan Nivasa Bhuta Nitarang Nareje Bhojendra Gehe Shike Varuddha Saraswati Jnana Kale Yatasati. Devaki then kept within herself the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the cause of all causes, the foundation of the entire cosmos. But because she was under arrest in the house of Kamsa, she was like the flames of a fire covered by the walls of a pot, or like a person who has knowledge but cannot distribute it to the world for the benefit of human society. So we are continuing with the verses of the second chapter, the prayers by the demigods. So now we see here, after Krishna being transferred from the mind of Vasudeva to the womb of Devaki, here a description is given about what was the position of Devaki. Beautiful analogy is also given in this verse, and also the importance of the knowledge and how the knowledge should not be kept with oneself and how the knowledge should be distributed or shared with others for the benefit of everyone. That's one of the very important point that we see in this verse, and also Srila Prabhupada gives a very elaborate purport. And we can see here Sa Devaki Sarva Jagan Nivasa. Sarva Jagan Nivasa. Srila Prabhupada, in the word-to-word translation, he points out that he is the sustainer of all the universes. Sarva Jagan Nivasa. The entire universe is being sheltered within Krishna. Krishna, Prabhupada points out from Gita, Matstani Sarva Bhutani. all the living entities, all the universes, everything is resting within him. But then, Sarva Jagad Nivasa Sa Devaki. So that and all the universes, whatever, everything that we see in existence is actually resting within Krishna. And that Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is resting within the womb of Devaki. So how to understand this? How we can put into logic and try to understand this? So the process is that we cannot understand this. This is the whole point. So in fact, in the 9th chapter, when Krishna Matstani Sarva Bhutani, when he explains that, he very clearly says that this is Yogam Aishwaram. This is my inconceivable potency. Unless we bring into account the inconceivable potency of the Lord, we cannot understand anything about the Lord and his various pastimes. Anything in relation to the Lord we cannot understand. So that's why Brahma in his prayers very nicely he puts it. He says that Jananto eva jananti. Others may say, someone else may say that yes, I have understood about Krishna, I know about Krishna's opulences and Krishna's name, form, glory. Let them say, King Bahutya Name Prabhu. So, but I don't want to say many big words. I don't want to use any big words. But as far as I am concerned, he says that Manasa Vapusa Vacha. With body, mind and words, Vaibhavam Tava Gochara. It is not possible to comprehend the Lord's name, form, glories, etc. It's not possible to comprehend with the senses, with the tiny senses and mind. We are very insignificant. We cannot really understand about his opulences. So this is again a very important philosophical point. Unless we get to know this point, we are very, very insignificant, tiny spirit soul, wandering in this universe. Millions and millions of birds, we are just wandering. Unless we accept our insignificance and accept the great significance of the Supreme Lord and his opulences, we cannot enter into these subject matters. It's very difficult. And this knowledge also we receive in parampara. So by the mercy of the acharyas in parampara, we may get a glimpse of his name, form, glories, if they wish, if their mercy is bestowed upon us. So that is the most important prerequisite for understanding the spiritual subject matters. Not just by our logic or by our understanding or by our intellectual capacity, it is possible to understand. Otherwise, how we can fit in? There are so many verses like this, so many explanations that is given in the Shastras about the Lord's amazing activities, inconceivable potencies. So this is the fundamental philosophical principle that we need to very clearly understand. Then, gradually by the mercy of the Lord and his devotees, we can understand. So further he says, Nivasa Bhuta Nitaram Nareje. So the Lord is residing, that Supreme Personality of Godhead is residing within the womb of Devaki. And Prabhupada also, in the word to word, he says that, but it's not illuminated. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead is residing within the womb of Devaki, he is not illuminated, and further that is being illuminated as the sun is so luminous. It's not happening there. Why? The reason is given in the verse itself. Bhojendra Gehe Agni Shikeva Ruddha Saraswati Jnana Kale Yatasati. So the reason being that because she is arrested, Bhoja Indra. So Kamsa is Bhoja Indra, is the king of the Bhojas, and as a result of that, so it appeared like the flames of a fire in a pot. If you see in a pot, there could be a flame of fire which is maybe very tiny, maybe very mild. There is some illumination, there is heat as well that comes out of it. Little light also comes out of it, but it is very mild because it's covered by the pot. And also Agni Shikeva, this Shika, this word is also, we all know Shika means some supposed to be a little tiny one, and so also it's meant pointed. Shikar, also Shikara we say, the pointed tip. So Agni Shikeva Ruddha. And the last line of this sentence is very, very important. Saraswati Jnana Kale Yatasati. So here it is explained that a person who has knowledge but cannot distribute it to the world for the benefit of the human society. This is so important. So it's like the knowledge being covered, knowledge is there, but for various reasons, the knowledge is not distributed or the knowledge is not properly disseminated. So here, Kamsa is the stumbling block. He wants to we will go through the purport. Prabhupada points out specifically how Kamsa is blocking the Krishna consciousness. And so that's a very important point. Srila Prabhupada at the beginning of the purport, he makes the point that Jnana Kala is most significant. Knowledge is meant for distribution. Although there is already such much scientific knowledge, whenever scientists or philosophers awaken to a particular type of knowledge, they try to distribute it throughout the world. For otherwise the knowledge gradually dries up and no one benefits from it. So this is an important point. First of all, we need to understand what is knowledge, what is real knowledge, and with that real knowledge, what do we need to do about it? And if the knowledge is not properly utilized, then what is the consequence of it? Or if someone who blocks the real knowledge, what is the consequence of such a person? So all those things are discussed in this purport. And just before we we get into the Srila Prabhupada's purport, there is also, we can see how Srila Prabhupada has very much aligned his purport with the commentary of Srila Sridhara Swami and Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur. Here, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, he points out that now the fire is restricted in the pot, but if the fire, when it can burn more freely, it can even burn the house. So here, the example given of the fire being in the pot, Srila Prabhupada also points out that, and Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur in his commentary, he points out that the fire is like covered by the walls of a small house. So there is a town, there is a village, there is also a small house, and there is a small fire which is covered by the walls of the house. It does not have a very powerful impact, but when the fire becomes very big, it can burn the entire village. So Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur points out that knowledge trapped in the hearts of men who do not distribute it. So he calls them as cheaters of knowledge. Those people who has knowledge, but actually they do not have knowledge, because if they have knowledge, they will distribute it. But for various reasons, they are not distributing the knowledge, they are keeping it within themselves. And so he calls them as cheaters. So, vanchita. So, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur always used to say, this world is full of cheaters and cheated. So that is for those who do not distribute the proper knowledge. And he further, Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says that they neither flourish nor they benefit others. So this is what happens. Actually, they think that with whatever knowledge they know, they can keep it within themselves and they can show their power or their talent or their expertise. But actually, they do not flourish. They just get destroyed by that knowledge. So that's what he says. That knowledge will eventually destroy its restrictor, who is very sinful. So he further says that in this way, Devaki would destroy the offensive Kamsa. So in just quite a short span of time, now Kamsa will be destroyed, she says. Yeah, now we can see on the other hand that when somebody, when they do not distribute the knowledge, what is the consequences? So there are in one of the commentaries by Srila Sridhara Swami, or the follower of Sridhara Swami, by name Vamsidhara, he points out that there are three ways knowledge will not be distributed properly. So he gives one reason. He says, person who has knowledge, but if he does not share, he does not distribute it to others, one of the reason could be, he says that it could be due to envious nature. He is very envious. He is not able to accommodate that if I distribute this knowledge, then he may become more talented, or he may have more expertise on the subject, or some people may glorify him. As a result of that, he wants to keep that knowledge within himself. So he thinks that better let me not teach this knowledge to others. Let me hold it with myself. But rather, on the other hand, a devotee is so happy to give the knowledge, even to his enemy he may give the knowledge, to save the person. That is the quality of a devotee. And also the Lord knows, the devotee never becomes envious, because he knows that the Lord has got, his Lord is very powerful, he has got unlimited potencies, and he can do unlimited things with unlimited number of jivas. And a particular way in which a jiva pleases the Lord, another jiva cannot please in that particular way. So every jiva has got a unique relationship with the Supreme Lord, and in a unique way the jiva can please the Lord. So a devotee has a very clear understanding about it, and he is very happy to share the knowledge with others. So that is the beauty of a devotee. And if also, Prabhupada also points out in this purport, if one is not benevolent enough to share this knowledge immediately, to give it to others, that knowledge gets dried up as it is given here. Isn't it? No, we all have this experience. You study something and you don't preach it, you don't share it, you totally forget it. So the whole purpose of studying and then accumulating the knowledge is to purify ourselves and also help others in the process of purification. If we do not do that, then the whole purpose is defeated. So we are like Kripana. We are not Brahmanas, we are Kripana. So that's a very important point. Then he goes on to explain, so person who has got knowledge, and another important thing is you have to apply the knowledge. What is the use of having knowledge? Oh, I know this, I know that. Yes, I know it is said here like this. I know it is said in this Upanishad like this. In this Purana it is said like this. This particular speaker spoke like this. He said like that. But when it comes to application, you don't do anything. You are just like an armchair speculator. So the other day, with Sri Ramchandra and with Prabhu, we were discussing that sometimes in the village, there will be, some two elderly people will be sitting, sometimes they eat groundnuts. They eat groundnuts and then they just keep speaking about so many different things. But they will not do anything practical in their life. Nothing they will do to help others. But they will be criticizing, they will be pointing out, they will be doing analysis. It's of no use. So he says that such kind of knowledge is also useless. So persons who has knowledge, but when it comes to application, they don't apply it. So what is that? Dharmopadesha samaye sarve jana panditaha. When it comes to giving advice to others, he's like a pandit. He gives so many different kinds of advice. But tad anushtana samaye, what is that? Munayo na panditaha. Even sometimes the rishis, when it comes to application, they don't apply that knowledge. What is the use of such knowledge? You are a so-called rishi, so-called muni, so-called big philosopher. It is useless. So it's very important for us to not only hear the subject matter of the transcendental subject. We should need to hear it. Apart from hearing it, we need to apply it in our life. So that particular knowledge, what it does, it can completely vanquish our sinful desires, sinful proclivities. It can destroy it. That's what Krishna also says in the Gita, in the glory of the 4th chapter, when Krishna explains. He explains that how the fire can burn anything into ashes. Similarly, all our sinful proclivities, sinful reactions can be burnt into ashes by the transcendental knowledge. So knowledge needs to be applied. It's not that we study and then we have to think how to apply the knowledge in our lives. Otherwise, it is again a useless knowledge. So then he makes another point. So one may be knowledgeable. He may even try to apply that knowledge. But then he is very proud of it. See, this is again a very big danger. You become proud of the knowledge that you have. So this is also the very basic teaching. If you see in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna explains what is knowledge, the first two things he says that amanitvam adhambitvam. He says that the first preliminary qualification, he says one should be very humble, he says, not become proud. Vidya dadati vinayam. So how do you know a person is knowledgeable? You can see in his character. He's very humble. He never takes credit for himself. He immediately gives the credit to his guru and the predecessor acharyas. That is the whole point. And that's a fact, that's a reality also. Whatever knowledge we have, whatever intelligence we have, whatever strength we have, it's all coming from Krishna. And when we acknowledge it, we are very safe. The moment we don't acknowledge and we take credit for ourselves, then our life becomes very heavy. So that's an important point. And the Chaitanya Bhagavad, there's a very nice verse, it explains, and when we become proud of knowledge, when we become very proud and we don't appreciate the source of the knowledge and those who carry that knowledge and apply that in their lives, we become offensive to the devotees. So the Chaitanya Bhagavad says, Vidyadana kulagyana tapasyara made je mora bhakate rastane kare aparade Sheshab jana habe je yuga vanchita, this word is used, he is a cheater. Shabe tara namani bhe amara charita But people who are intoxicated by education, wealth, high birth, vidya, dhana, kula, jnana, high birth, knowledge and austerity, tapasyara. What is the end of it? When you are very proud, you end up in committing offenses. Bhakatare stane kare aparade. You end up committing offenses to the devotees. And not only that, Sabetara namani be amare charita. They will never be interested in glorifying the Supreme Lord. And they will be cheated also by some kind of cheaters. They will never accept my glory. This is from Chaitanya Bhagavad, what we read. Yeah, so Krishna in the Gita, he says that even if you are considered to be the most sinful of all sinners, apichet asi papebhya sarvebhya papakrittamaha sarvam jnana plavenaiva vrajinam santarishyasi. So that's what we discussed before, that this, with the help of the boat of transcendental knowledge, one can cross over this ocean of miseries. Yeah, so Srila Prabhupada also, in further in this purport, he points out that how India has got the real knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. It's an amazing point. Prabhupada says, India has the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, but unfortunately, for some reason or other, this sublime knowledge of the science of God was not distributed throughout the world, although it is meant for the entire human society. Actually, that is what we are supposed to distribute. That is the real knowledge we are supposed to give. But unfortunately, we are going to the West. We are just following the so-called technology. Every Prabhupada used to say that everyone is becoming a Shudra. They are just going out to the West and then they are all going as beggars. So Prabhupada said that I went to the West not to beg anything. I went to give something. I want to really save people. I want to save the lives of the people who are actually struggling due to ignorance. So then Prabhupada further points out that how the Lord came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As Krishna is said, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam, just surrender to me. I will save you from all the sins and all the fears. But then still people were not ready. So the Lord said that, okay, forget it. Okay, I will come myself. I will come as in the form of a devotee. And then he said that, what is that? Patra apatre. You know, he doesn't see what is the qualification, what qualification one had, what qualification he had, he does not have. He just distributed. He just made everyone to float in love of God. That is the incarnation of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He came to give this transcendental knowledge. He gave the holy name. And as followers of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we all know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he very much expected his followers to study the Gita and Bhagavatam. Yeah, primarily he gave the holy name to everyone to chant the holy name. At the same time, he himself was hearing the Bhagavatam. He was very much absorbed in hearing the Bhagavatam. And and all his followers were very much, the whole Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy is based on the Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's an important point. Here Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gave a very important instruction. He said, Jare deke tare kahe Krishna Upadesh. So whomsoever you see, wherever you meet them, you just give them the knowledge of Krishna. And in this way, you become a spiritual master. He said, Amara Agya Guru hai Tara Desh. So like that, you become a spiritual master and preach all over the world. So Srila Prabhupada is very much referring to that verse in this purport. And then he is pointing out, so this is what the Indians are supposed to do. Indians are supposed to give this transcendental knowledge to others. And he immediately points out that, but the Indians fail to do that. They fail to distribute this knowledge. So that somehow, this is the problem. This see, Krishna comes time to time. He comes, he sends his devotees, he sends the scriptures. Whenever there is a glanir, whenever there is a deviation, whenever the mass of people forget about the transcendental knowledge, they are grossly engaged in sense gratification, the Lord takes some measures to rectify the situation. So and that's what has happened in India. Everywhere, like many times we hear, like even 15 years, 20 years back, everywhere, in many houses we hear the tapes of Vishnu Sahasranama. There is always puja going on in the house. We can see people with dhotis. Here in South India, Tamil Nadu, we call veshtis. At least they put the vibhuti, chandan. All this culture was there. Now we can see, someone comes like a gentleman with a coat and suit and tie, and you can see, we call him Pashandi. Pashandi means there's nothing in the forehead. They don't want to identify themselves as religious or spiritual. They feel something, I will be mocked. and it's all not required. Or many of them are convinced that it is not required. We just have to lead a happy life, and that's what the degradation has gone to such an extent. And in so many houses, so many families, children are being very much inspired, and they are being motivated to become scientists, doctors, what to say, lawyers and politicians and big industrialists. But there is absolutely no importance given about the real knowledge, the real importance of the difference between soul and the body, who we are, what is the relationship with the Lord. That is not being given. So Prabhupada says that Indians have failed to distribute this knowledge. So that is what he very much points out in this purport. And yeah, I'm just going to read one quote from the Transcendental Diary. It's very important. Srila Prabhupada, how he was very much, he wanted his disciples and his followers to very much preach Bhagavad Gita as it is vigorously, and wanted to meet people of who are educated, who are politicians, who are industrialists. He wanted to preach the high class people and then make them understand the real subject matter of the Gita without any compromise. So here, Srila Prabhupada in a conversation, he is pointing out how the politicians and so-called philosophers and so-called people who are cheating in the name of Bhagavad Gita. He says that the organizers are all highly placed men. So there was a Gita Mela was organized, and there are many, there is Bajaj and so many other high-class people who are trying to organize programs. They were calling so many different kinds of speakers from various so-called spiritual groups, and everybody wanted to come and then give some talk about Bhagavad Gita. So one time Srila Prabhupada did not want to go. So he advised Giriraj Maharaj and Gopal Krishna Maharaj to go and then on his behalf go and then give a speech on the Bhagavad Gita, but he gave some guidelines. So in that context, this was spoken. The organizers are all highly placed men with direct connections to the government. So Prabhupada gave some lengthy, detailed instructions to Giriraj on how to deal with it. This is the line that you should adopt. We are already propagating Gita, but as it is, without changing. This should be the method. Krishna is not going to flatter the politicians and learned scholars. Rather, Krishna is teaching them how to flatter Krishna. Namam dushkritino moodaha prapadyante naradamaha, etc. If one is not prepared to surrender to Krishna, then what is the meaning of preaching Gita? If one has got their own philosophy, then let them preach their own philosophy. But do not do it in the name of the Gita. This is our protest to all the interpreters of the Bhagavad Gita. It's very interesting. Prabhupada says that so many are speaking Bhagavad Gita because Bhagavad Gita is a very popular book. It's a very famous book all around the world. Everybody knows about the Bhagavad Gita. So you want to become popular, use the Bhagavad Gita and become popular. That's what the cheaters are doing. So Prabhupada is pointing out. If one has got their own philosophy, let them preach their own philosophy, but do not do it in the name of the Gita. This is our protest to all of the interpreters of the Bhagavad Gita. If they do not believe in God, Krishna, and they don't want to surrender to Him, then let him preach atheism. No matter, doesn't matter, you preach atheism. Everyone has got the right to do this. But why through the Gita? This is like a man who wants to smoke ganja, but he does not want to be caught. So he takes a friend's hand and smokes it in his hand. And then when the authorities come, he says, "Oh, I have not smoked ganja. See, my hands are clean." The idea is that if one wants to preach the Gita, then he must preach as it is. Otherwise, don't go through the Gita. So, as my students, you can speak very tactfully. So Prabhupada is very specific that how so many so-called writers, so-called presenters of the Bhagavad Gita, they are misrepresenting the Bhagavad Gita. They are interpreting the Bhagavad Gita. They are not presenting it as it is. So just to gain some name and fame, they use some jargons, they say something what Krishna has not said in the Bhagavad Gita. And we can also see after hearing the Bhagavad Gita, a person should take up devotional service. One should surrender his life in the service of the Lord. But that has not happened. Everybody has got some vague ideas. As His Grace Mukundananda Prabhu was mentioning the point that there are so many Gitas being published. So many of them cannot understand because the publishers themselves don't understand what is there in the subject, what is there in the book. So that is the fact of the matter. So that is the reality. So again, in another lecture, Srila Prabhupada points out, so our process is to receive the perfect knowledge from the perfect source and distribute it. We don't want to manufacture knowledge. Therefore, we are presenting Bhagavad Gita as it is. The Bhagavad Gita is already perfect. Why shall I interpret with my imperfect senses? This is cheating. But people want to be cheated. Vanchita vanchaka sampradaya. This is what we were speaking. This is what is going on. The whole world is full of cheaters and cheated because they want to be cheated. There are so many cheaters, they don't want real thing. Here is the real thing, Bhagavad Gita, the Supreme Personality of Godhead speaking personally about Himself. So why should we interpret? Does it mean that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Authority, left something unexplained to be interpreted later on by some rascals? No. But the rascals dare, they interpret. That is cheating. That is another fault. This lecture Srila Prabhupada gave in 1973, and this is from the first chapter Bhagavad Gita, verses 13 to 14. At that time, in 1973, Prabhupada says, there are 640 to 645 editions of the Bhagavad Gita. They are all simply cheating. Amongst them, there are big scholars, not scholars, all rascals, but they cheat. They pose themselves as scholars, and people want to be cheated. So, they take their words. So, they cannot understand Krishna. Cheated. They take the shelter of the cheaters, therefore they are cheated. So this is why we are again and again speaking about this. It's so important because we are seeing so many so-called speakers are speaking on the Bhagavad Gita. The very first thing we need to know, are you presenting according to the parampara? Are you presenting what Krishna is speaking? Otherwise, it is like a milk touched by the poison. So the more we hear it, we are going to die. Death means spiritual death. What is the use of living in this body without life? We are like, what is that Prabhupada? The other day in the lecture he is explaining about this blacksmith. What is that? Bellows of the blacksmith, exactly. That's the whole point. That is also breathing, we are also breathing. What is the use of our life? Prabhupada gives an example of also the tree, which is, which is living for 700 years. What's the glory of it? Our life becomes useless. Mandanam lokaranjanam. We are just, it's like a dead body decorated with very nice flowers, ornaments. So our life without Krishna consciousness, life without serving Krishna, as Krishna wants, is just a useless life. So it's very important from whom we hear. And Prabhupada says that, Prabhupada takes credit, he makes the point here that, therefore the proper distribution of knowledge has begun, by which not only the whole world will benefit, but India's glory will be manifested in human society. So this is actually really India's glory. Real India's glory is that we are here meant to distribute this transcendental knowledge to everyone around the world. There may be so many mathematicians, so many doctors, lawyers, and in so many fields there could be so many expertise we may have, but that's not the real thing that you can find in many places. But the real knowledge is there in the transcendental message of the Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. This we need to distribute. People do not know this, and this is what we need to give to others. Srila Prabhupada did it. Srila Prabhupada is the only person who actually very boldly spoke about Krishna, and he spoke how Krishna is a supreme person and how we are all his eternal servants. Very clearly he presented this. Any book we distribute, to anyone we give, anyone can get this message in a very straightforward manner, very simple manner, they can understand this. That's why these books are very powerful. So Prabhupada further points out that, and also in the purport he points out that, so if someone is going to try to oppose giving this knowledge, he points out, Kamsa tried to arrest Krishna consciousness within his house, with the result that Kamsa with all his opulences was later vanquished. This is the result. Anybody who is opposing this Krishna consciousness movement, who is a stumbling block to the progress of Krishna consciousness, sooner or later they are going to face the consequences. Now you are directly opposing Krishna. So we know what happened to Kamsa, we know what happened to Ravana, we know what happened to Hiranyakashipu, we know what happened to Shishupala, we know what happened to all the demons. The demons can never flourish. Maybe they are like the glowworms. For a short time they may, it will appear glowing, but it's a matter of very short time. Everything is gone. So that is that's the reality. So also we can see in the Krishna book, or we will be seeing in the 10th chapter of in the Srimad Bhagavatam, 28th chapter of the autumn season, Prabhupada gives an example of the false religious leaders, or the false sadhus, the bogus sadhus, who are there. They are compared to the glowworms. But then when the pure devotees, sometimes they are covered by sometimes we can see the sun is covered apparently for a short time by the clouds. Or actually the sun cannot be covered, but for our vision it appears to be covered. So similarly, there are bona fide speakers, bona fide religious followers people because they want to be cheated, they take shelter of these cheaters. And these cheaters, they do so many big, they give dramatic statements, they dance, they speak, they make some what to say, some jargons, they use this and that, and people they just look, they open their eyes and they look at them. But anybody who has got little common sense, who has little brain, can understand that it's all just cheating going on. So that's why it's very important. They have to hear from a bona fide school, bona fide representative. So Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that similarly, the real knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita was being choked by unscrupulous Indian leaders. Very clearly he says. There are so many so-called leaders we have in India. We had, we are having, we will have, and whomsoever does not surrender to the message of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, they are going to just divert the attention of the mass of people. So that's why the atheism is spreading in many places. So we can see, one of the so-called big leader is considered to be one of the person who did revolution in India. What is his conception about God? What is his conception about Krishna? Krishna is an imaginary figure. This is what actually is. If you see the commentary of I don't know what he wrote, but his commentary says that Krishna is an imaginary figure. So this is what is the knowledge about Bhagavad Gita he can really give to others. So this is what influence it can have on other people. That Prabhupada is not exaggerating, he's speaking reality here. And another so-called Indian leader, he said that industries are the real temples. So what is the use of these temples? Let us build many industries that will really help the people. And another so-called spiritual leader who is very much glorified in India, what he said, that instead of growing tulasi plants, it's better to grow eggplants. This is what he said, and the so-called better, instead of the young men going to the ashram or then offering prayers, let them go and then play football, and then they can develop good strength. He's just a fool number one. That's the reality. And that's what Srila Prabhupada is pointing out in this purport, that they are unscrupulous Indian leaders, with the result that both India's culture and knowledge of the Supreme were being lost. Now, however, because Krishna consciousness is spreading, the proper use of Bhagavad Gita is being attempted. So all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada, actually he was the one who took bold steps. He wanted this Bhagavad Gita to be translated in as many languages as possible, and devotees really did it. And this book is being spread to every nook and corner of different countries in the world, and people are being saved. And also, people want to hear about Krishna. You may do so many indirect preaching, so many ways you may try to speak about God, but sometimes people want to know. When they see Hare Krishna, they want to know who is Krishna. They really want to know. And we should be ready to give this knowledge to others. We should not cover up Krishna. We should not put screen in front of Krishna. We should really we should actually give the real knowledge. We should expose also what is not Krishna consciousness and what is Krishna consciousness. Reality distinguished from illusion, isn't it? This is real Krishna consciousness. That is what the Bhagavatam is giving to us. So we should be fully convinced about it, and we should have the faith that when we give the knowledge, real knowledge, people will get benefited. Maybe one or two people may get irritated, or they may get they may get upset. But it doesn't matter. Even those people, after some period of time, when they get beaten in this material world, they will come back. They will know, oh, maybe that person who was other day speaking about the Bhagavad Gita, was very clearly speaking about the real knowledge. Maybe that is true. Maybe I should go and approach. So we should have confidence. We should not try to change the matter according to the wishes of Vox Populi. Srila Prabhupada said that we are not for Vox Populi. Vox Populi means our views we should not try to align our views according to the opinion of the public. But our view should be what is Krishna's view, what is Krishna's opinion. That should be our opinion. So that's a very important point. So that's why you can see, if you see in the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, for the two verses, Nayad Vachas Chitra Padam Hare Yasho and Tadvag Visargo, Srila Prabhupada's purport to these two verses, very elaborate purport Srila Prabhupada gave. And Srila Prabhupada very specifically pointed out that this transcendental knowledge is meant to create revolution in the minds of the conditioned souls. To exactly put it, read the verses of Srila Prabhupada, he says that these are full of transcendental words directed toward bringing about a revolution in the impious lives of the world's misdirected civilization. This is what Srila Prabhupada said. Very choicest of words Prabhupada used here. So whole civilization is misdirected, and this knowledge of the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita will certainly create revolution. We can see people giving up all bad habits. We can see people giving up their misconceptions and taking to the process of Krishna consciousness. And we can see so many devotees in our movement who have come from various backgrounds. This is the real proof. So these two verses are very important. So, and those great sadhus, although, we can see in a very short span of time, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Srimad Bhagavatam, in the history of the religious institutions, this Hare Krishna movement has created a revolution. Very short span of time, it was spread throughout the world, and so many books were distributed. Many people were amazed how it was possible. So that was the power of a pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. He really wanted to give this knowledge to others. He really wanted to save people from this conditioning. Like the other day, we were discussing how Srila Prabhupada was glowing. So many people had this experience. There was even the mercy flowed, for a simple car driver who was not a devotee or something. When Srila Prabhupada was sitting in the Vyasasana, he saw, this man is on fire. He said, this person is in fire. And he had a vision, that was the mercy of Srila Prabhupada. And so many devotees had this experience. Prabhupada was glowing because he was also carrying Krishna within his heart. And how Devaki is Krishna is within their home, and in every one of our heart Krishna is there, but we are now covered by ignorance, so we are not able to identify. But when we recognize Krishna's supremacy, the glory of Krishna's devotee and his followers, and we also take up to this process of Krishna consciousness, chant the holy names, follow the four regulative principles. So to the degree we are sincere, to that degree we will also be able to transmit this pure process of Krishna consciousness. So the Bhagavatam says, Nayadvachas Chitra Padam Hare Yasho Jagat Pavitram Pragarnita Karihichit. So what is the glory of distributing this knowledge? So when we distribute this knowledge, this is going to purify this entire world. That is the real purification. And who will be interested? The great devotees of the Lord will be interested. There may be so many other programs that may be happening in this world. So-called knowledge, so-called discussions about various thousands and thousands of topics are there. There are so many forums, so many meetings are happening in many places. But what are those places? Tadvayasam tirtam ushanti manasaha. That's what it is. So those are all the subject matters which are not related with Krishna or Krishna consciousness. That is all, it's all the subject matter. This is all the place where the crows come and then form a meeting and then they form a group. That's what it is all about. Nayatra hamsa niramantu sikshayaha. So, but the pure devotees of the Lord, they are not interested in that. Then he also point out that Tadvag Visargo Janataga Viplavo. So these two verses, Narada Muni is pointing out that even though there may be, you may try to find some grammatical errors or some in composition, there may be here and there some flaws, but still such a work which is done for the purpose of saving the entire world, and the only purpose behind producing such literatures is for the purification of the entire humanity, for pleasing the Lord. Such literatures are appreciated by the pure devotees. Tadvag Visargo Janataga Viplavo Yasmin Pratishlokam Abhagdavatyapi Namani Anantasya Shonkitanyat Shrinvanti Gayanti Grinantya Bhikshnashaha Grinanti Sadavaha. So the sadhus, the great personalities, they relish such topics. So these topics of the Bhagavatam and Gita, really it gives nourishment to the suffering conditioned soul, and by this knowledge our ignorance will be destroyed and we will be reinstated in our constitutional position as eternal servants of Krishna. So Jeev Krishna Das, E Bishwas, Korle Toyar Dhukonai. So we will be free from all the worries and we will be happy, and we should not stop there. We have a very important work, as Srila Prabhupada points out here. We should get purified, and in the process of purification we should try to help others also by distributing this knowledge. So we have, Srila Prabhupada designed our whole program. We have regular Bhagavatam and Gita classes. Apart from that, we go out and hold programs to save the lives of the conditioned souls. We have Harinam programs. We have book distribution programs. We have so many different kinds of preaching programs, mass preaching. We are preaching to the scientists. We are preaching to the village people. So many different kinds of preaching programs are meant simply to distribute the knowledge. If you don't distribute the knowledge, as it is pointed out here, and we will be covered by that so-called knowledge, we will become dry and we will not be able to flourish in our Krishna consciousness. So that's the point. So we will stop here. You have any questions or comments or any other realizations? Yes, ma'am.
Thought about this material knowledge in the society now, practical scenario, we can see that instead of, even though it's material, but instead of distributing to people for the benefit of people, and they sell it now, now make it a business. So because of that, the knowledge is not respected as a knowledge or
Yes. Yes. Yeah, it's an amazing point. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, that's what is happening. Everything is done for business, just how to earn money, how to exploit others. So that's why, this is just cheaters and cheated. That's what they are doing actually. And also we can see in Krishna in the Gita, he explains that the very purpose of knowledge is meant for purification, not for anything else. Kayena manasa vacha, kevalair indriyairapi. It's very important that with mind, body and words, the whole process of knowledge is meant for one's purification. And when it is meant for one's purification, it is also meant for others' purification. You should give knowledge for others' purification, not to exploit others, not to make a business out of it and then cheat people in the name of knowledge. That's what is going everywhere. All so-called institutions, so-called spiritual leaders, everything they have a package. You can have okay, you want this, okay, here is what you pay much, this much, this. And also, so-called, this reminds me of another thing also. We have, so-called brahmanas or purohits, they are, okay, you want this, you want to do this, this is the amount, okay, this is the package, okay, this much you have to pay, and this is what it is. Everyone is actually exploiting, but that's not the purpose of the sadhu. That's not the sadhu does not expect anything. His only interest is to save the suffering conditioned souls. So this was the whole interest. Srila Prabhupada is such a great personality whose only intention was to give this pure message to others. So that is the very uniqueness of Srila Prabhupada. And it attracted so many of them, that by his purity. His purity was so much attractive. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yeah. Givers. Maharaj also recently gave, we have to be givers, not takers. That should be the intention, that we should always try to give this knowledge to others. So that's why the whole endeavor, I think we are having all this program of, we may have some transcendental competition of who is distributing more books, but the real underlying principle behind all our programs is how to please Krishna, how to save the conditioned souls, because that will please Krishna. That's our program. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna.